Hey, Charles Alvarez. In this video, we're going to talk about how to engage your employees in your business so that you can leverage your time, get everybody on the same page, and truly set yourself up to get your business to the next level. You know, the reason I got into the business that I'm in is to deliver freedom to business owners. And what I've learned over the years, after practicing for about 19 years now, I have learned that in order for a company to grow, a company only grows in relation to how fast the employees are growing or how engaged they are. And speaking of engagement, there was an interesting study done by the Gallop poll that finished in 2012 that was actually confirmed by other independent studies by Harvard University and by MIT. And what they did is the Gallop poll had a series of companies that they analyzed over a period of time because they wanted to find out of the companies that they studied. Sorry, I can't get the words out today. They found out that, or they wanted to find out, is what was the level of engagement of each of the team members or each of the employees. And the results of the study were actually quite shocking. What the study found was that roughly 20% of a company's employees are absolutely miserable being there. In other words, when they wake up each day, their day already started out poorly because they know they're going to go to work that day. It also found that 50% of the employees are apathetic. In other words, they're not necessarily miserable, but they're not necessarily enthusiastic about coming to work each day. In other words, they're kind of there to get a paycheck, do their thing, show up at 8 and leave at 5 on the dot. And what they found is that, in other words, they weren't really adding a lot of value, but they weren't really detracting a lot of value either. And then they found that about 30% of your employees are actually engaged in the work. In other words, they're excited to come to work. They're there for a higher purpose than just to collect a paycheck. And they truly are engaged and believe in what they are doing. So here's a question to you. If a 70-pound force pushes against a 30-pound force, which force do you think is going to win? Well, based upon the laws of physics, that 70-pound force is going to overcome or beat that 30-pound force. Well, that's exactly what is happening in businesses today. You have a 70-pound force, which is the 20% of employees that are completely miserable coming to work every day, and the 50% apathetic who are pushing against the 20% who are engaged. And often that 70%, those who are miserable and those who are just kind of apathetic as to what they do, typically thwart what the 30% are trying to accomplish. In other words, they feel like they're having to climb this huge hill in order to get the business to the next level. But it's just happening so slow. It kind of feels like you're running an adult daycare because you're just not engaged. As a matter of fact, one of our clients, Meg, she runs a great company. They do IT outsourcing and they help companies with their break fix, kind of like the Geek Squad, but just for businesses. And she said, I'm so frustrated because I feel like I run an adult daycare. And what we have found in business and working with over 1,100 companies, the last count was we've actually walked through this process of getting everybody on the same page now with 1,107 companies. And what we have found is that people, they truly want to be successful. They don't want to come to work each day purposeless and miserable at their jobs. They actually want to engage, but the problem is that their heart's not into it. So what we're going to talk about today is how to get your employees or how to get your team to engage with you. And what we found works best is that we want to use the fundamentals of human nature to truly get these people engaged. And what we found is that there really are two things necessary in order to really engage your employees. The first thing is your employees have to feel appreciated for what they do, which sometimes for us business owners, it's difficult to do because sometimes we're motivated by other things. For example, I know that most business owners, or the ones that we have had the pleasure of working with, typically are motivated by financial freedom, by achievement, by really creating something that's of worth to themselves and to their family. And what we tend to do is project that value down to our team members or down to other people. And what we learn is that people have different motivating factors. I remember one year, it was crazy, when I had a financial services firm, we gave a $5,000 bonus to our executive assistant. Now, she was polite. She said thank you, but we didn't quite get the reaction that we kind of thought she would. And I was like, you know what? I take great pride in the fact that I actually get my team to engage. I wonder why that didn't work. And I remember her, as I talked to my partner about it, I remember her saying that, she really enjoys going to expensive Italian food restaurants, but you know what? She just didn't feel like, that was something she wanted to spend her money on. So, knowing that in the back of my mind, after I actually sat back and thought for a minute, I was like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go to her favorite restaurant, which is Damien's, which is a great place here in Houston. And I bought her a $250 gift card to Damien's so that she and her boyfriend can go there. When I handed her that gift card, it was like I went to China, bought up all the rice and all the tea and gave it to her. The appreciation she felt from that did so much more than the $5,000 check that we handed her. And the reason is because she felt appreciated because we did something that was meaningful to her. So the first thing is that people want to be appreciated for the work that they do. We actually find that is a huge motivating factor. The second thing that we find really engages people and really gets them to buy into what you're trying to do and truly allows you to leverage your time and grow your business and scale your business and allows you to get out of the weeds and into the things that really going to bring you value, like promoting your business, developing people, and really setting up your company for the future. What we find is that people want to feel part of something bigger than themselves. In other words, they don't want to feel that they come to work just to get the boss rich or just to collect a paycheck. They truly want to be involved in something bigger than themselves. Apple is a great case study on how this plays out. Apple Computers, their identity statement, which we'll talk about in just a minute, says that we create simple and easy to use products or technology in order to ease the communication among people in society. So in other words, their company stands for delivering great products that are simple and easy to use that allows facilitation of communication in society. So when those programmers are coming to work each day, or when those engineers are coming to work each day, they're not just coming there to build a phone or an iPad or a computer. They're coming there to allow people to communicate with their loved ones, allow people to communicate with their team, allow people to communicate with their husbands and fathers and daughters, and with their teenagers that have gone off to college or go off to school. And so when they come to work each day, they don't see it as just building a piece of technology. They see it as something that is really adding value to the community. So think about this. When was the last time that you showed your team appreciation? And the second thing is, why do your employees come to work? And have you articulated the reason why you're in business? So we're going to talk about today the first thing that actually gets people on the same page, gets them engaged, and brings those 20% up to at least apathetic, and those apathetic into engaged. And really what people connect with more than anything is your story. Of all the different things you could have chosen to do, of all the different businesses you could have chosen to get into, why did you choose this one? We chose this business, which is a training consulting firm, because we wanted to deliver freedom to business owners and to their employees. Because we find, like I said earlier, that as the organization grows, we often find that the reason it's growing is because each of the people inside the organization are growing as well. So how do we do that? What are the practical steps necessary to be able to tell your story in a manner that communicates to your team and to your employees why you're in business and why you have chosen this particular industry or this particular business to be involved in? And it all starts with what we call your brand purpose, or we often refer to your identity statement. The identity statement is, why are you in business? What do you stand for? I'm a big football fan, and I love the NFL, I love college football. And one of the things that's always fascinated me is I like studying teams that tend to be successful year in and year out. And one team, although I'm not a fan of them, but I am a great respecter of them, is the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Pittsburgh Steelers, since I think the time they actually got into the league, they wanted to be known as a team that excelled at two things. They excelled at running the ball and playing smash mouth defense. And so every time that they bring on a new player or bring on a coach, they want to make sure that they buy into that story, because they found that wins. If you can control the ball on offense by running the ball and stop your opponent, you stand a pretty good chance of winning the game. And they've had a very successful history of winning multiple Super Bowls, having a lot of winning seasons, and they really buy into that identity. They call it that identity. As a matter of fact, if we think about some of the bad teams in football, like the Oakland Raiders or the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, you often hear the commentators say that they don't have an identity yet. In other words, they don't know what they stand for. So if they don't know what your identity is, or if they don't know what their identity is, they really can't live up to that. So the first thing is, I really articulate what is your brand purpose. Why are you in business? Like I said, mine is we deliver freedom to business owners. So everything that we do, every training program, every consulting program that we do hinges upon that, which we're always asking ourselves, is what we're doing here delivering freedom to business owners and their employees? And if it's not, we just don't do it. So the first place to start is, why are you in business? What is the reason that you want to get up each day and go to your business? Besides just the monetary factor, because what we learned is that just making money or just getting in business to make money isn't enough to inspire people. There has to be a bigger reason why. So really connect with why is it that you're in this business, and then start communicating that to your team members. And you'll find that they actually will start engaging almost immediately. We've seen it happen time and time again. Like we said earlier, we've delivered this to over 1,100 businesses. Like I said earlier, 1,107 to be exact. And what we find is when the business owner starts articulating to their team what they're trying to accomplish in their business and what their identity is, people tend to respond to that because it touches their heart, not just their mind. So really find out, what is it that I am in business for? What is my why? After you determine that, really understand what are your core values. Now, core values have been very much misunderstood in business these days. In other words, they have this executive retreat, they write out 4 or 5 core values, and then they stick them on the wall and nobody sees them. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about 5 core values, no more than 5, that really express how you want your people to operate, and really use words that are meaningful and that are clear. Let me give you an example. One of the things that we see oftentimes with core values, we see the word integrity or excellence. The issue is that people tend to not be able to really wrap their minds around what those words mean, because let's face it, excellence to one person can mean something entirely different to another one. So your core values should really act as the framework as how your business operates and how you want your team inside of that business to operate. For example, one of ours is take accountability. Or in other words, another way that I've heard it said is take ownership. In other words, if you see something wrong with our company, or if you see something wrong with our client's company that you can add value to it in a professional manner, which is one of our other core values, professionalism, is take it upon yourself to actually take the initiative and take the risk of going out there and putting yourself out there and saying, hey, here's some things that I'm seeing that you're doing that we think that you can do better. So taking ownership of what your work is very important to us. Like I said also, the other core value that we think is very, very important is professionalism. We want people to feel like that they're being taken care of, and we value things like education. As a matter of fact, one of the things that I need to keep my my license is I need 250 hours of continuing education each and every year. If I don't do that, we're affiliated with the Brian Tracy organization, and we've been certified through that organization, which is one of the best training and consulting firms in the entire world. And we've been certified by them to say, yes, you have the material, you have the understanding, you have the professionalism to be able to change people's lives and to really add value and help companies scale and get to the next level. So what are your 5 core values? How do you want your people to operate when nobody is looking? Because at the end of the day, if you create a 1,000-page operation manual, nobody's going to look at it, nobody's going to read it. The 5 core values are things that not only that you want your people to adhere to and to operate by, but things you can hold your team accountable to. In other words, you need to be able to make sure that if you saw one of your employees, your team members, actually conducting that core value, you should be able to recognize it, and also if they're not acting in that core value, be able to call them out on it in a professional manner and kind of lead them to say, hey, look, that's not the way that we operate, that's not what we stand for, here's how we should operate instead. So those 5 core values truly send the message of how do we want our people to act, how do we want them to conduct themselves on a daily basis. And more importantly is you should have a routine, weekly, if not daily mechanism for looking for, in other words, for catching people doing the right thing. You know, in parenting, one of the things that I learned early on is, yes, it's important to teach your kids when they do something wrong or incorrectly. However, it's even more important to catch them doing something right. Well, the same thing applies to your employees and to your team. When was the last time you caught them doing something right? And that kind of goes back to what we said earlier, which is, when was the last time that you appreciate, hey, you know what, you did a great job there. I saw that the way that you took initiative and solved that problem for our clients, that was a great job. People are really connected and they feel like they're part of something. They feel like they're being watched and being taken care of. So the core values not only help people keep them accountable, but it's also a great mechanism to help your employees and to catch them doing something right. So after your identity statement and after you define your core values, the third step is to do a SWOT analysis. SWOT analysis, you've may heard, stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And the reason that's important is because it's really difficult to move forward in your business without taking a good look at yourself and at your company and really getting the feedback of your leadership team to draw them in, because one of the things I found that is very true of human nature is that when people give ideas or when they help build something, they feel part of it in such a manner that they want to give it their very best. For example, one of the things that we did when we were doing this for one of our clients, it was actually a large architecture firm here in Houston. When we actually did this, we brought the executive team together to come up with your identity statement, their core values, and their SWOT analysis. And one of the challenges that this company was having was that the executives weren't on board. They really didn't feel like it was their company. So what happened is they started acting more like mid-level managers or even like architects without really acting like leadership or executives. And when we brought them in, which I think is critical to this process of defining what your story is and coming up with your identity statement and your core values, getting their buy-in is essential because they feel like they're actually helping build something that they can call them their own. So it's very critical. What a SWOT analysis does, it kind of brings everybody together and says, hey, what do we do well? What are our strengths? What are the things that our clients tell us that we do well? What are the things that we really, really look at and say, you know what, we're doing that very, very well. And weaknesses. What are some of the things that we find that we don't do as well? What are some of the things that we get feedback from our clients and employees that, you know what, just don't seem to add up or don't measure up to our core values or what we're trying to accomplish here? What are our opportunities? What's happening in the marketplace that we can take advantage of? What opportunities are there to grow our staff? Because I said earlier, if your company's staff isn't growing, if they're not growing their skill set, if they're not growing their value to your organization, you're going to get stuck at some level if you're not there already. And then what are the threats? Who are your competitors? What do they do well? What do they do poorly? Is there a key person? One of the things we find a lot of times that's a huge risk for small and mid-sized businesses is they have one or two employees that if they left, it would just be catastrophic. Don't let that happen to you. It's perfectly to say, you know what, if this person left, our business would be in serious trouble because that is an opportunity to grow your team. No single one person should hold your company hostage. So it's a great time to say, hey, who in our company, if they left, will put our business in serious jeopardy, and how do we put together mitigation plans to make sure that that doesn't happen? So as you lead your company through storytelling and telling why you're in business and creating core values and a SWOT analysis, the very last part of your story, in order to engage your employees, which is the first necessary component out of three, necessary to turn, like I said, those miserable employees into apathetic and those apathetic employees into engaged, the very last thing is to come up with what we call your blue sky vision. Your blue sky vision is a goal. However, it's a goal that seems achievable, but seems to stretch you a little bit. One of my favorite blue sky visions of all time was when JFK said, in the next decade, I want a man in the moon. So a blue sky vision is something that you want to achieve that seems reasonable but also stretches you as well. The same architecture firm that I talked to you about earlier, they wanted to have 5 offices in 5 different locations around the United States in major markets with at least 50 people or more. In other words, very achievable, but it also stretched them as well, because what that does is when people understand your vision as to where you want to take your company, they start seeing themselves buying into that vision. The best definition that I've heard on leadership actually came from Ronald Reagan, who was the President of the United States between 1980 and 1988. And his definition of leadership resonates with me, and it's resonated with a lot of our clients, and it really shows how people can really buy in if you use leadership this way. The way they define leadership is this, is someone, and it doesn't matter who it is, we don't think a CEO, or we don't think that leadership is tied to a position or a title. We have seen receptionists that are absolutely fantastic leaders. We've seen some CEOs who are not very good leaders. Over time, they got better, which we actually do think that leadership is a learned skill. I don't think that you're come out of the womb with leadership capabilities. I think you actually can learn how to be a great leader. And here's how. A leader is someone who has a vision of where they want to take their company, their life, their family, and then enlists other people to join that person on that journey in a manner that also helps the other person reach their goals as well. Let me give you an example of this. One of our visions, or our blue sky vision, is to be the largest privately held consulting and training company in the United States. It's achievable, but also stretches us. Well, as we were sharing our vision with our employees, with our team members, we found, a little bit after that, we found out that one of our employees, who is a mid-level consultant, actually wants to run his own office. His dream is to actually run a P&L, run a balance sheet. So what we said is, okay, well, let's create a plan for you on how you can run one of the offices in the other location. Is that something that might be of interest to you? He said, yeah, as a matter of fact, I've always lived in Texas. I wouldn't mind living outside of Texas and starting an office there. So our vision, and if we're going to have the largest privately held consulting firm in the United States, we have to have multiple locations because our clients will be in multiple locations as well. So it makes sense that we need more offices, right? So this person bought into that vision because he could see himself and how he fit into that vision. With the receptionist, same thing there. We said, look, this is our vision. How do you see yourself fitting into that? She said, well, I actually would like to grow my career and become one day a chief administrative officer. And I said, well, one thing that I find that happens with companies that grow is that growth creates opportunity for everybody. Would you be interested in us creating a career path on how you can become our chief administrative officer? And you would not believe the productivity that happened to her after that, because we created a plan for her on how she can fit into that overall vision in our company. So, in order to engage your employees and to lead them, you've got to have a couple of these components. First is, you have to have an identity. What is your brand identity? Why are you in business? The second is, have core values. What are your core values for your business? No more than 5 of them, and make sure that you can sink your teeth in it. Third thing is to do a SWOT analysis. What's your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats? And the last thing is, what's your vision? What is your blue sky vision? What are you trying to build here so that you have a target that you're shooting for, that you can share with your employees and find out how you can actually bring them in along with that vision. The next thing on how to really engage your employees, which we're going to talk about actually in the next video, is we're going to talk about that now that you've started to engage your employees, how do you empower them? Because it's one thing to engage them, it's something completely different to empower them. And one of the key skills that we have find that leaders are really good at is empowering their employees. Because let's face it, as your company grows, you can't control everything. You've got to start entrusting other people to take care of some of those day-to-day activities or the operational activities, so that you can focus on other things that's going to elevate your business to the next level. So watch out in the next couple of days for that second video, which we're going to talk about how to properly empower your team after they've engaged, so that you can take your business to the next level.